presented by Soundlibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at Soundlibra.com. Building your personal philosophy starts now. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lisa. We're excited to guide you through building your own philosophy. Before we jump in, a quick heads up. While we're discussing mental well-being and personal growth, this isn't professional medical or mental health advice, so be sure to consult with a professional for your specific needs.
Exactly right. Now, we begin with Socrates. The unexamined life is not worth living.
That's a powerful declaration, Alex. What does it truly mean to examine your life, and why is it so important?
It's about active engagement with our existence, understanding our thoughts, motivations, and choices by asking why about ourselves.
So, it's about more than just living. It's about understanding the how and why of our lives?
Precisely. We often adopt beliefs and habits without conscious choice, like being carried by a river's current. Examining life means stepping out of that current to choose our direction.
It's easy to get caught in daily routines. This examination is about intentional living.
Exactly. Socrates believed self-knowledge and understanding were paramount. A life without questioning is like being asleep, present but not truly awake.
So, conscious awareness and critical thinking about our lives lead to self-discovery.
Yes, understanding our virtues, flaws, and desires helps us live more ethically and fulfilling lives. It's the foundation for building anything meaningful.
Like knowing the land before building a house.
That's right. Self-examination is understanding the bedrock of your being. What truly motivates you? What are your core values and assumptions?
That sounds challenging. We might uncover things we don't want to see.
It can be, but the value of the examined life, even with its challenges, is immense. It brings clarity, purpose, and intentional living.
So, it's about finding truth and direction, not necessarily fault. It's about gaining control.
Precisely. It begins with curiosity and asking questions, not just about the world, but about ourselves. Why do I react this way? Is this belief truly mine?
Becoming an observer of our own lives, taking a step back.
An active, curious observer. This is the start of our personal philosophy, our guiding framework for living well. We'll explore this further.
Will provide the tools to think deeply and live accordingly. Recognizing the value of examination is the crucial first spark.
To summarize, Socrates' quote urges self-awareness and continuous questioning. It's about understanding ourselves to live with purpose and intention.
It's about taking ownership of our lives, our thoughts, and our actions.
And creating a life that truly resonates with who we are. If you seek deeper self-understanding, you're in the right place.
Thanks for listening. Next episode, what is a philosophy anyway?
Welcome back. Last time we explored the idea that an unexamined life isn't worth living. Now let's define what philosophy truly is.
Philosophy can sound so academic. So help us understand, what are we really talking about when we use that word?
At its core, philosophy is about thinking deeply. It's a way of understanding the world and our place within it. It's about developing your own coherent framework for how you see things, not just memorizing what others have said.
So, it's more about the process of thinking and forming your own understanding, rather than just absorbing information?
Exactly. Think of it like building a house. You need a blueprint. Your personal philosophy is that blueprint for your life. It's the underlying structure that guides how you make decisions and interpret events.
Okay, a blueprint for life. So, what are the key components of this blueprint?
The bedrock is built upon three interconnected elements: your beliefs, your values, and your assumptions. Let's break those down. Your beliefs are the things you hold to be true about the world.
And our beliefs aren't always conscious, are they?
Precisely. We need to examine these beliefs. Do they hold up under scrutiny? For example, do you believe that hard work always leads to success? These beliefs shape how you approach things.
Right. And if I believe that collaboration is essential for success, that's going to influence how I approach projects.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our second key element: values. Values are what you hold in high regard. They're the principles that guide your actions and tell you what is important. They're like guiding stars.
So, if my belief is that collaboration is important, my value might be teamwork or unity.
Yes, that's a perfect connection. If you believe everyone deserves a fair chance, your value might be justice or fairness. We'll delve deeper into values soon because they are so crucial.
So, we have beliefs, what we hold to be true, and values, what we deem important. What about assumptions?
Assumptions are beliefs that we often don't even realize we have. They're like the air we breathe. They profoundly influence our perceptions and actions. They are often unconscious judgments or expectations.
Can you give us an example of an assumption?
Imagine you're going to a new social gathering. An assumption might be, everyone there will be unfriendly. These assumptions, conscious or unconscious, can color your entire experience before you even arrive.
So, if I assume people will be unfriendly, I might act defensively, which could then lead to people being unfriendly back, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You've got it. That's the power of assumptions. Unpacking them is vital because they can unknowingly steer us. So, when we talk about philosophy, we're examining our core beliefs, clarifying our deeply held values, and identifying our often hidden assumptions.
And when these three, beliefs, values, and assumptions, are aligned and work together coherently, that's when you start to have a solid personal philosophy, right?
Exactly. It's about creating a consistent internal compass. When your beliefs, values, and assumptions are in harmony, your actions and decisions tend to feel more congruent and purposeful.
It sounds like philosophy is less about abstract theories and more about practical wisdom for living your life intentionally.
That's precisely the goal. Philosophy isn't just for academics. It's a tool for everyone to build a more meaningful and well-lived life. It's about understanding why you do what you do and then deciding if that's how you want to do it.
So, to sum up for our listeners, philosophy, at its heart, is about conscious, deep thinking. It's building a personal framework for understanding the world, guided by our beliefs, what we hold true, our values, what we deem important, and our assumptions, the often unseen filters through which we see things. When these are coherent, we have the foundation of a personal philosophy.
Perfectly put, Lisa. It's that internal structure that allows us to navigate the complexities of life with greater clarity and intention.
Fantastic. So, where do we go from here, Alex?
Next episode, we're going to zoom in on the first building block, the power of your core beliefs. We'll explore how to identify them and why it's so important to examine them.
Looking forward to that.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. Today, we're diving into core beliefs.
It's fascinating how these deeply ingrained ideas, often formed without us even realizing it, can steer our entire lives. So, what exactly do we mean by core beliefs?
Think of core beliefs as the fundamental truths you hold about yourself, others, and the world around you. They're the bedrock of your thinking, often operating at a subconscious level. These aren't just casual opinions. They're the deeply held convictions that influence how you interpret events, make decisions, and behave.
So, they're like the operating system for our minds. They dictate how everything else runs.
Exactly. Imagine you have a core belief that people are generally trustworthy. How would you approach a new situation or a stranger? You'd likely be open, perhaps a little vulnerable, and assume good intentions. Now, contrast that with a core belief that people are inherently selfish. Your approach would be very different, guarded, skeptical, perhaps even suspicious. Your core beliefs create a filter through which you experience reality.
That makes so much sense. And you mentioned they're often formed unconsciously. How does that happen?
It's an interesting process, often rooted in our early experiences. Childhood is a fertile ground for belief formation. Think about it. As children, we absorb information from our parents, teachers, peers, and the environment around us. If a child repeatedly hears that they are smart or capable, they might develop a core belief in their own intelligence and ability. Conversely, if they're often criticized or told they can't do things, they might internalize a belief of inadequacy.
So, it's not just about what happens, but also how those events are interpreted and communicated to us, even if unintentionally.
Precisely. And it's not limited to childhood. Throughout our lives, new experiences can reinforce or even challenge these core beliefs. A successful project at work might strengthen a belief in your competence. A betrayal by a friend could solidify a belief that people can't be trusted. It's a continuous feedback loop.
It's a bit humbling to think that so much of how we operate is based on beliefs we may not have consciously chosen.
It can be. And that's where the power of examining these beliefs comes in. Our core beliefs have a profound impact on our actions, our choices, and ultimately, our life experiences. Let's consider a few examples. If your core belief is, I am not good enough, how might that manifest?
Well, you might avoid challenges, procrastinate on important tasks, doubt your abilities even when you succeed, or seek constant validation from others. You might self sabotage because, on some level, you believe you don't deserve success.
Excellent points. Now, what if the core belief is relationships are difficult and unreliable?
You might struggle with commitment, avoid deep connections, be quick to withdraw when conflict arises, or constantly expect the worst from people you're close to. You're essentially setting yourself up for a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You've hit on a crucial concept there, self-fulfilling prophecies. Our core beliefs don't just describe reality, they actively shape it. They influence our perceptions, our attitudes, and our behaviors. This means our beliefs about ourselves and the world can actively create the very outcomes we fear or desire.
It's like wearing a pair of heavily tinted glasses. You're not seeing the world as it is, but as filtered through the color of your lenses. And if those lenses are formed from unchallenged core beliefs, we might be living in a distorted reality without even knowing it.
A perfect analogy, Lisa. This is why understanding and identifying our core beliefs is such a vital step in building a personal philosophy. These beliefs, whether positive or negative, are the silent architects of our lives. The good news is, while they are powerful, they're not unchangeable.
In future episodes, we'll definitely explore how to identify them. But for now, the takeaway is that these deeply held, often unconscious, beliefs are incredibly influential. They're formed through our experiences, especially in childhood, and they act as filters for our reality, guiding our decisions and actions, sometimes in ways we don't even realize.
Exactly. So, as you go about your week, I encourage you to start just observing your reactions to different situations. What underlying assumptions might be at play? What are the truths you hold about yourself and the world that are guiding that reaction? Don't try to change anything yet, just observe. It's the first step towards consciously shaping your worldview.
That's a great prompt to end on. We've established the immense power of our core beliefs and how they shape our experience. Next time, we'll continue this exploration by unpacking the assumptions that underlie these beliefs.
Next episode, Unpacking Your Assumptions. Welcome back. Last time we discussed core beliefs. Today, we're unpacking assumptions.
Assumptions feel a bit more hidden than beliefs, don't they, Alex?
Exactly, Lisa. Our core beliefs are like the bedrock of our understanding. Assumptions, on the other hand, are the unwritten rules, the implied expectations we build upon that bedrock, often without even realizing it. They act as mental shortcuts.
So, if my belief is that honesty is important, an assumption might be that everyone else values honesty just as much as I do.
That's a perfect illustration. Assumptions help us fill in the blanks and predict what will happen. They usually operate below the level of conscious thought.
Those mental shortcuts can definitely lead us down the wrong path. Assuming everyone thinks like me can create a lot of misunderstandings.
Picture this. You're presenting an idea at work. You believe it's brilliant, and you assume your colleagues will immediately agree. When they start asking a lot of questions, you might feel confused. That confusion likely stems from your assumption about their level of understanding not being accurate.
That's precisely where friction can occur. So, how do we begin to unpack these hidden assumptions? It sounds like we need to become detectives of our own minds.
The crucial first step is cultivating awareness. We need to make a conscious effort to pause and ask ourselves, what am I taking for granted in this situation? Often, unexpected outcomes or strong emotional reactions are signals that an assumption has been challenged.
So, if I feel frustrated because someone didn't grasp what I thought was a perfectly clear explanation, I should pause and ask myself, what assumption did I make about their understanding?
Precisely. Once you've recognized a potential assumption, the next step is to identify it specifically. Is it the assumption that competence automatically leads to recognition, or that people always act in their own best interest? Perhaps it's the assumption that a certain outcome is practically guaranteed.
I can see how my assumptions probably fall into general categories. Assumptions about people, assumptions about how things work, and assumptions about the world at large.
You're absolutely right. We make assumptions about human nature, about systems and processes, and about cause and effect relationships. A very common assumption in relationships, for instance, is that your partner should intuitively know what you need without you having to express it.
Oh, that's a classic one. So, after we've identified an assumption, do we just leave it there?
No, we must actively challenge them. Not all assumptions are problematic. Some are necessary for daily functioning, like assuming a chair will support your weight. The goal is to challenge assumptions that are inaccurate and, consequently, are causing you distress or leading to negative outcomes.
So, it's about learning to discern. Is this particular assumption helpful and accurate, or is it harmful and misleading?
That's the heart of it. To effectively challenge an assumption, start by asking yourself, is this assumption universally true? What evidence do I have that supports it? Crucially, what evidence contradicts it? And is there any other valid way to interpret this situation? This process is about gathering more information and actively considering alternative perspectives.
This approach sounds like it requires a real willingness to consider that we might be wrong.
It absolutely does. This is where the practice of philosophy truly shines, developing intellectual humility. Our current understanding is not necessarily the final or only truth. Remember how we talked about the importance of asking questions? Unpacking assumptions is a direct and powerful application of that principle.
So, to summarize, understanding our assumptions helps us in three key ways. First, it brings awareness to what we are unconsciously taking for granted. Second, it allows us to clearly articulate those assumptions. And third, it enables us to evaluate whether they are accurate and truly serving us well.
You've nailed it. And this isn't a one-time task. It's an ongoing practice. Regularly unpacking your assumptions makes you a more perceptive observer of both yourself and the world around you.
This also has a direct connection to empathy. When I recognize that my assumptions about how people should behave might not align with their actual experiences or perspectives, I can approach them with greater understanding and kindness.
That's a very profound connection to make, Lisa. Challenging our assumptions not only leads to stronger, more authentic relationships, but also helps us navigate life with considerably more wisdom. It's a transition from a place of reactive certainty to one of more considered and thoughtful understanding.
That's fantastic. So, to recap this episode, assumptions are those unspoken expectations that significantly shape our perceptions of reality. They function as mental shortcuts, which can be useful, but they can also lead to significant problems if left unexamined. The process involves being aware, clearly identifying the assumption, and then critically evaluating it. This practice fosters intellectual humility and strengthens our empathy.
And by engaging in this process, we continuously refine our worldview, making our personal philosophy more resilient and our lived experience more intentional. Next episode, The Ethical Compass, Navigating Right and Wrong. Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. Last time, we delved into unpacking your assumptions. Now, we're turning our attention to ethics.
Ethics. It sounds so weighty. I think a lot of people hear the word ethics and immediately think of complex philosophical debates, not something they can apply to their everyday lives. But is it really that removed from us?
Not all, Lisa. In fact, ethics is arguably the branch of philosophy most deeply intertwined with our daily existence. At its heart, ethics is the study of morality. It's about understanding what is considered good, bad, right, and wrong, and more importantly, why. It's about how we should behave, not just toward others, but also toward ourselves.
So it's not just about following rules, but understanding the reasons behind them?
Exactly. Think of it like building a moral compass. You need to know your true north, your values, but you also need to understand the terrain and the different ways you can navigate it. Ethics provides the frameworks and the tools for that navigation.
That's a great analogy. So, where do we even start with something so broad?
We start by looking at some of the major ways philosophers have thought about ethics. One of the oldest and most influential approaches is called consequentialism. Have you ever heard that term before?
I think so. It sounds like it's about consequences, right?
You got it. Consequentialism is a family of ethical theories that judge the morality of an action based on its outcomes or consequences. The most well-known form of consequentialism is utilitarianism.
Utilitarianism. That rings a bell. Isn't that about the greatest good for the greatest number?
Precisely. Utilitarians, most famously Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, argue that the right action is the one that produces the most overall happiness or pleasure and the least overall pain or suffering for the greatest number of people affected. Imagine you have to make a difficult choice between two options. A utilitarian would look at the potential results of each option and choose the one that leads to the best overall outcome for everyone involved.
So, if a lie would prevent a lot of pain for many people, even though lying is generally considered wrong, a utilitarian might say it's the right thing to do in that specific situation because the consequence is so beneficial?
That's a classic ethical dilemma that utilitarianism grapples with. It's about weighing the potential good against the potential harm. It focuses on the results, the actual impact of our choices. But consequentialism isn't the only game in town. Another major approach is deontology.
Deontology. That sounds a bit more structured, more duty-bound.
You're on the right track. Deontological ethics, often associated with Immanuel Kant, focuses on duties, rules, and obligations rather than consequences. From a deontological perspective, some actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of the outcome. It's about whether you're acting according to a moral rule or duty.
So, if a rule says do not lie, a deontologist would say lying is wrong, period, even if telling that lie would lead to a wonderfully happy outcome for everyone?
That's the core idea. Kant, for example, argued that we have a duty to act according to universalizable moral principles. He proposed a test. Essentially, he asked, can you rationally will that the maxim of your action become a universal law? If an action, when universalized, leads to a contradiction or an undesirable state of affairs, then it's morally impermissible. So, if everyone lied whenever it was convenient, trust would break down and society could collapse. Therefore, lying is wrong because it cannot be a universal law.
That's a tough standard. It requires a real commitment to principles. What's another major way of looking at ethics?
We also have virtue ethics, which shifts the focus from actions and consequences to the character of the moral agent. Instead of asking, what is the right thing to do? Or what are my duties? Virtue ethics asks, what kind of person should I be?
Ah, so it's about cultivating good character traits, like being honest, courageous, just, and compassionate.
Exactly. Think of Aristotle's idea of virtues as finding a balance between two extremes. For example, courage is the balance between cowardice and recklessness. This approach emphasizes developing good habits and a virtuous character, believing that a virtuous person will naturally tend to do the right thing.
So, to recap, we have consequentialism, which looks at the outcomes of our actions, deontology, which focuses on duties and rules, and virtue ethics, which emphasizes character. These seem like very different lenses to view morality through.
They are, and philosophers have debated their strengths and weaknesses for centuries. The real power comes when we start to understand these frameworks and see how they can help us navigate our own ethical dilemmas. Building your personal philosophy isn't about choosing one of these and sticking to it rigidly, but about understanding the tools available to you.
And once we understand these different approaches, how do we actually develop our own ethical compass? How do we decide what's right for us?
That's the exciting next step, and it ties directly into our previous discussions. It involves introspection, examining our own core beliefs and values, and seeing how these ethical frameworks resonate with us. For consequentialism, it might mean thinking deeply about what truly constitutes happiness or well-being for yourself and others. For deontology, it's about identifying the fundamental duties or principles you believe are non-negotiable. For virtue ethics, it's about reflecting on the character traits you most admire and want to embody.
It sounds like a continuous process of self-examination and refinement.
It absolutely is. Your ethical compass isn't a static object. It's something you actively use and, at times, adjust as you learn and grow. It's about striving for consistency between your beliefs and your actions. Remember when we talked about unpacking your assumptions? This is where that skill really shines. We can start to identify the assumptions underlying different ethical positions and see which ones align with our own developing worldview.
So, by understanding these philosophical approaches to ethics, we can become more intentional about our moral choices and more consistent in how we live.
Precisely. It's about moving from simply reacting to moral situations to proactively shaping your responses based on a well-considered understanding of right and wrong. Building a robust ethical compass is a cornerstone of any personal philosophy.
This has been incredibly helpful, Alex. It makes ethics feel much more accessible and practical. I'm excited to see how we can apply these ideas further.
And so are we. In our next episode, we'll be defining your values, what truly matters to you. Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. Last time, we discussed your ethical compass. Today, we explore your values.
That's right, Alex. Ethics are important, but true ethical action comes from understanding what truly matters to us deep down.
Precisely. Values are your guiding principles. They dictate your priorities and how you wish to live. Unlike beliefs or assumptions, values are the deeply held convictions that shape your decisions and direct your life.
So, if beliefs are what we think is true and assumptions are what we take for granted, then values are what we hold dear? What's most important to us?
Exactly, Lisa. Your values are the foundation for your choices. If you value family time, for instance, you might choose a career that offers better work-life balance, even if it means a lower salary. Your values act as your personal compass.
That makes so much sense. It sounds like having clear values could reduce decision fatigue and give us a stronger sense of purpose. How do we even begin to define these core values?
It's a journey of introspection. Start by reflecting on moments in your life when you felt most proud or fulfilled. What were you doing? What principles were you living by?
And I imagine moments of frustration or anger could be just as revealing, right? When our actions clash with deeply held values, it often sparks strong emotions.
You've hit on a key point, Lisa. Negative emotional responses can signal that a core value is being violated. Anger at unfairness, for example, might point to fairness or justice as a significant value.
So we're essentially gathering clues from our life experiences, making notes of what brings us joy and what causes distress, and then identifying the underlying values?
That's the process. Once you have a list, the next step is to prioritize. Not all values are equally weighted. You might value creativity and punctuality, but if creativity consistently leads you to be late, it suggests creativity holds a higher priority for you.
How do we figure out which values are the most important ones for us?
Ask yourself, how important is this value to me on a scale of 1 to 10? Then ask, how consistently do I live this value? You're looking for values that are both highly important and that you aspire to embody more fully.
That's a crucial distinction, what we are living versus what we aspire to live. And this ties back beautifully to our previous discussion on ethics. If honesty is a core value, then deception would intuitively feel wrong.
Absolutely. Your values inform your ethical framework. It's also important to differentiate values from adopted beliefs or assumptions. Someone might say they value success, but we need to explore what success truly means to them. Is it wealth, recognition, or something more personal and authentic?
That's a vital point, Alex. We need to unpack those terms. Does success mean financial security, making a difference, or simply personal achievement?
Precisely. Defining your values is an ongoing process. As we grow and have new experiences, our values can evolve. The key is consistent self-awareness.
So, to summarize, values are our guiding principles. We define them by reflecting on life experiences, both positive and negative, and then prioritize them. We also need to ensure these values are authentic and unpacked in terms of their practical meaning for us.
A perfect summary, Lisa. Clarity on what truly matters is empowering, providing an anchor in a complex world and leading to a more intentional and fulfilling life. Our pleasure. Next episode, the philosophy of self. Who am I? Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. Last time, we dove deep into defining your values and what truly matters to you. Today, we're tackling perhaps the most fundamental question of all. Who am I?
This feels like the big one, Alex. It's one thing to know what you believe in, but quite another to understand the I that holds those beliefs. Where do we even begin to unpack the philosophy of self?
It's a question that has occupied thinkers for millennia, Lisa. Philosophers have approached it from so many angles. One of the most enduring questions is about the persistence of identity. Do you think you're the same person today as you were 10 years ago?
That's a tricky one. Physically, I'm definitely different. My experiences have changed me. Yet there's a continuous thread, a sense of being me. It's that persistent feeling of being the same individual.
Exactly. And philosophers try to pin down what creates that persistence. Some like John Locke, suggested its memory. He argued that our identity is tied to our consciousness and our ability to remember past experiences as our own. If you can remember it, it's part of your personal history, and therefore part of you.
So, if I lost all my memories, would I cease to be myself? That feels a bit extreme. What if someone has amnesia, but their body is still physically there, their personality is still there in some form?
That's precisely the kind of challenge that arises with a purely memory-based view. Others argue it's not just memory, but a continuous stream of consciousness. Think of it like a river. The water molecules are constantly changing, yet we still call it the same river because of its continuous flow and form. Our consciousness flows continuously, linking our past, present, and future selves.
That's a great analogy, Alex. The river analogy helps. The form is constant, even as the individual drops of water change. So, it's about the unbroken chain of awareness.
Absolutely. Now, let's consider another perspective, the self as a kind of bundle. The philosopher David Hume proposed that when we introspect, we don't find a single, unified self. Instead, we find a constantly changing collection of perceptions, sensations, emotions, thoughts, desires. He called this the bundle theory of the self.
A bundle of perceptions? So, there's no core me underneath it all, just a collection of fleeting mental events? That sounds a bit unsettling.
It can be. Hume argued that we imagine a unified self because of the way our perceptions are linked by resemblance and causality. Our minds are constantly putting these pieces together, creating the illusion of a stable, enduring self. So, when you ask, who am I? The philosophical answer, from this perspective, is a constantly shifting collection of experiences.
That's a profound idea, and it definitely makes me pause. It challenges the intuitive feeling we all have that there's a solid, consistent me living inside. It makes me think about how we present ourselves, too. Are we often just playing a role, acting out different perceptions depending on the situation?
That's a very insightful connection, Lisa. It touches on the idea of the self as a social construct as well. Sociologists and psychologists often talk about how our identity is shaped by our interactions with others, by the roles we play, and by the expectations society places upon us. We might have different selves for our family, our friends, our colleagues.
Right. It's like we have different masks for different occasions. But then, which one is the real me? Or are they all real in their own way?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Some philosophers, like existentialists such as Jean-Paul Sartre, would argue that we are radically free and constantly creating ourselves through our choices and actions. There's no predetermined essence of who you are. Instead, existence precedes essence. You exist first, and then you define yourself through your actions. You are what you do.
You are what you do. I like that. It puts the power back into our hands. It means that if I'm unhappy with who I am, I have the agency to change myself through my choices. It's not about discovering a fixed identity, but about actively building it.
Precisely. And this ties back beautifully to our earlier discussions on values and beliefs. The self, from these perspectives, isn't just something we discover, it's something we construct. Our choices, informed by our values, shape who we become. This creates a more dynamic understanding of identity.
So, to recap, we've explored several philosophical ideas about the self today. We looked at the memory-based view, where our identity is tied to our recollections. Then we touched on the continuous stream of consciousness, like a river flowing. David Hume's bundle theory suggests we're not a single entity, but a collection of perceptions. And finally, the existentialist perspective emphasizes our freedom to create ourselves through our actions.
Excellent summary, Lisa. It's clear that there's no single, simple answer to who am I. It's a question that invites ongoing reflection. The real task in building your personal philosophy is to engage with these ideas, see which ones resonate with you, and begin to form your own coherent understanding of yourself. It's about understanding the I, that navigates the world based on the values and beliefs we've been discussing.
It's empowering to think of ourselves as active creators of our identity rather than passive recipients. So, our sense of self is this evolving tapestry woven from our memories, our consciousness, our experiences, and the deliberate choices we make.
Exactly. And this understanding of the self is the foundation for how we approach everything else in life, including our relationships, which is what we'll be diving into next time.
Next episode, the philosophy of relationships, connection, and understanding.
Welcome back. Last time we covered the philosophy of self. Now, let's tackle relationships.
That's right, Alex. We've spent a lot of time thinking about ourselves, our beliefs, and our values. But a huge part of life, and therefore a huge part of our personal philosophy, is how we relate to the people around us. It's about connection and understanding.
Exactly, Lisa. Think about it. We are fundamentally social beings. Our interactions shape us, and we, in turn, shape others. So, what are the philosophical underpinnings of healthy relationships? I think a great starting point is empathy.
Empathy. That's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, right? It's putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Precisely. And from a philosophical perspective, empathy is crucial because it allows us to bridge the gap between our own subjective experience and that of another person. It's the foundation for genuine connection. Without empathy, we risk seeing others not as individuals with their own complex inner lives, but as mere objects or annoyances.
So, when we talk about empathy shaping our relationships, we're really saying that understanding someone else's feelings helps us treat them better and build trust.
Absolutely. And that leads us directly to trust. Trust is the bedrock of any strong relationship. Philosophically, trust can be seen as a willingness to take a risk, to be vulnerable with another person, believing they will act in a way that is beneficial or at least not harmful to us.
It's like a leap of faith, but one that's earned over time through consistent actions and shared experiences.
You nailed it. And this concept of earning trust connects back to our earlier discussions on ethics and values. When someone consistently acts in alignment with their stated values, values that we perceive as good or at least neutral, we're more likely to trust them. Conversely, if someone's actions consistently betray their words or our expectations, trust erodes.
It makes sense. If someone tells you they value honesty, but you catch them in a lie, that erodes trust, and it makes it hard to feel connected.
Exactly. Now, beyond empathy and trust, communication is another vital pillar. And I don't just mean talking. I mean meaningful communication. Philosophers have explored various models of communication, but at its heart, it's about the shared creation of meaning. It's not just sending information, it's ensuring that information is understood as intended, and it involves actively listening.
Active listening, that means really paying attention, not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Precisely. Active listening is a philosophical stance in itself. It's a commitment to understanding the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it. It's about valuing their contribution to the conversation. When we truly listen, we show respect, and that respect deepens the connection.
So, empathy helps us understand how someone feels. Trust allows us to be vulnerable, and effective communication, including active listening, ensures we can navigate our differences and build shared understanding. It's like a three-legged stool.
That's a fantastic analogy, Lisa. And the beauty of this is that these philosophical concepts aren't just abstract ideas. They have direct, tangible impacts on our daily lives and the quality of our relationships. Think about conflict. How do we handle disagreements?
Well, ideally, we try to resolve them constructively, drawing on that empathy and communication. But sometimes, conflict can feel like a philosophical battle, a clash of worldviews.
It absolutely can. Our personal values and beliefs, which we discussed previously, often come into play during disagreements. A key part of the philosophy of relationships is how we embrace these differences. Can we respect someone's right to hold different views, even when they challenge our own? This is where tolerance and intellectual humility come in.
Intellectual humility, that's not immediately thinking you have all the answers.
Correct. It's recognizing the limits of our own knowledge and understanding. In relationships, this means being open to the idea that we might be wrong or that there might be valid perspectives we haven't considered. This doesn't mean compromising your core values, but it does mean approaching disagreements with a genuine desire to understand rather than to win.
So, instead of seeing a disagreement as a fight, we can see it as an opportunity to learn more about the other person and perhaps even refine our own thinking.
Exactly. And this philosophical approach to connection extends to how we support each other. What does it mean to truly be there for someone? It involves recognizing their needs, being present, and offering support without judgment. This act of support, again, is rooted in empathy and a recognition of our shared humanity.
It's about seeing the other person's struggles and joys as significant, not just to them, but to you as well, because you value the relationship.
Precisely. And for those of you who have been following along, you might notice how this ties back to our earlier episodes. Remember when we discussed defining your values? Those values are the compass that guides how you interact with others. If kindness is a core value, your actions and relationships will naturally reflect that.
And our discussion on the philosophy of self is also fundamental here. The more we understand ourselves, our own biases, our own needs, the better equipped we are to understand and connect with others. It's all interconnected.
It truly is. So, to recap our dive into the philosophy of relationships, we've seen that empathy is the gateway to understanding. Trust is the foundation built on vulnerability and consistency, and effective communication, characterized by active listening, allows for the shared creation of meaning. Navigating differences with respect and intellectual humility and offering genuine support are also key components.
It's a lot to think about, but it all boils down to building connections grounded in respect, understanding, and a shared willingness to grow together.
Well said, Lisa. These principles could dramatically transform how we experience our friendships, family bonds, and romantic partnerships. It's about consciously choosing to engage with others in ways that foster deeper, more meaningful connections.
It's a lifelong practice, isn't it? Constantly working on these aspects of ourselves and our interactions.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of our discussion on the philosophy of relationships. Next time, we'll be exploring the philosophy of work and how to find meaning and purpose in what we do.
Next episode, the philosophy of work, meaning and purpose.
Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. We're in episode 9, diving into work.
Right, Alex. Work takes up so much of our lives. It's not just about money. It's about our time, our contributions, and our identity. Last episode, we discussed relationships. Today, we're looking at our professional lives and finding meaning.
Exactly. We need to see work as more than a transaction. We've built a foundation on core beliefs and values in earlier episodes. Remember episode 3 on those fundamental truths? And episode 6 about what truly matters.
Those episodes were so helpful. It's about understanding our why. So, for work, it means asking, does my job fit my beliefs and values? Does it feel purposeful?
That's it. If your core belief is helping others, but your job hinders people, you'll feel a disconnect. This leads to burnout. But when work aligns with your values, it becomes more than a job. It's a calling.
That makes sense. So, the first step is honest self reflection on how our work matches our philosophy. But what if it doesn't align at all?
A great question. The philosophy of work recognizes that not everyone can change careers immediately. It's about finding meaning even in tough situations. It's about intention. Can you approach tasks with mastery and integrity? Can you help colleagues or volunteer for projects closer to your values?
So, it's not always a huge career change, but infusing our current work with more purpose where possible, like finding the positive, but with a philosophical base.
Yes, and understanding what purpose means for work. For some, it's creative expression. For others, it's community service, problem solving, or building something lasting. It's personal, tied to your values.
That connects to episode 7 on the philosophy of self. Who are we, and how does our work show that? If we see ourselves as learners, a job with learning opportunities feels more purposeful.
Absolutely. And it means moving beyond seeing work only through productivity and external rewards like promotions or salary. Those can be part of work, but shouldn't be the only drivers for meaning.
That's a key point. It's easy to get caught up in chasing success markers. But if the work itself feels empty, those rewards can seem hollow.
Precisely. Philosophers talk about eudaimonia, loosely translated as human flourishing. In work, this means finding activities that use our best abilities, help us grow, and contribute to something bigger. It's about finding a sense of flow where you're completely absorbed.
Flow state, I like that. When you're so engaged, time flies. That's often a sign of meaningful work.
It often is. Finding flow means knowing your strengths and passions, and then finding work that uses them. It's the synergy of who you are and what you do. Now, thinking about values, if you deeply value honesty, a job requiring constant deception will cause ethical distress.
And that brings us back to episode 5, our ethical compass. Our work shouldn't constantly conflict with our morals.
Exactly. So, our thoughts on the philosophy of work today are actively seek meaning and purpose. This means, first, reflecting on how your work aligns with your core beliefs and values, as we covered before. Second, recognizing that purpose is personal and can be found in many work aspects. Third, aiming for engagement and flow, using your strengths and feeling absorbed. And fourth, ensuring your work doesn't fundamentally conflict with your ethics.
That's a great summary, Alex. It's not about having the perfect job, but approaching your work intentionally, seeking alignment with your philosophy, and finding chances to grow and contribute. It's living your values through your career.
Well put, Lisa. This leads us smoothly to our next topic, the philosophy of parenting. How do we apply our understanding of beliefs, values, and self to raising children?
That sounds like a profound discussion coming up.
It will be. So, join us next time for episode 10 of Build Your Personal Philosophy. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. Today, we focus on parenting.
Parenting.
It's such a huge topic, Alex.
And it really ties into everything we've discussed so far, our core beliefs, our values, even our sense of self. Thinking about raising children through a philosophical lens feels incredibly important.
Absolutely, Lisa. It's about more than just day-to-day care. It's about consciously shaping the kind of individuals we hope our children will become. And in doing so, refining our own understanding of what it means to live a good life. So let's start broad. What are some of the foundational philosophical questions we might grapple with as parents?
Well, I imagine the first big one is about why we parent. What's the purpose? Is it about passing on our genes, our culture, creating productive members of society, or something more personal?
Exactly. And this leads us to consider what we believe a child is. Are they a blank slate waiting to be written upon? Or are they born with a certain inherent nature, a temperament, inclinations that we should nurture and guide? This is an age-old debate, stretching back to philosophers who thought children were like blank slates, and others who believed children were naturally good and corrupted by society.
That's a great distinction. So, if we lean towards the idea of a blank slate, our philosophy might focus heavily on education and socialization. We'd be very deliberate about the environment we create and the lessons we teach.
Precisely. And if we believe in an inherent nature, our approach might be more about observation, understanding, and helping that innate potential flourish, rather than imposing a predetermined path. Most parents likely find themselves somewhere in between these two extremes, don't you think? Recognizing that children come with their own unique makeup, but that our influence is also profoundly shaping.
I agree. And this shapes our approach to discipline and guidance. Are we aiming for compliance, or are we aiming to cultivate internal motivation and a sense of responsibility?
That's a critical point. A philosophy focused on external compliance might rely more on rewards and punishments. The goal is for the child to follow rules because they have to. A philosophy aiming for internal responsibility, however, focuses on helping the child understand the reasons behind rules, to develop empathy, and to make good choices even when no one is watching.
So, it's about teaching them how to think, not just what to think, and helping them develop their own conscience. This sounds a lot like the ethical compass we discussed earlier.
It absolutely does. A core part of a parenting philosophy is instilling a strong ethical framework. This involves not just telling children what is right and wrong, but modeling it, discussing ethical dilemmas, and helping them think through consequences. What are the core values we want to pass on? Is it honesty, kindness, courage, perseverance, respect for others?
And this brings us back to defining our own values. Whatever values are most important to us are likely to become the values we try to impart to our children. But it's not just about telling them. It's about living those values ourselves, isn't it? Children learn so much from observation.
Imitation is powerful. Our own behavior is the most potent philosophical lesson we can offer. Beyond ethics, a philosophical approach to parenting also considers the child's developing sense of self. Remember when we talked about the philosophy of self? We need to support our children in answering those same questions. Who am I? What are my strengths and weaknesses? What makes me unique?
So, it's about fostering their individuality while also helping them understand their place in the world and in their relationships. We touched on the philosophy of relationships earlier. How does that play out in parenting?
It's foundational. Parenting is inherently relational. A philosophical approach encourages us to see our children not just as recipients of our care, but as individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, and needs. It emphasizes active listening, validating their emotions, even when they're difficult, and building a secure attachment based on trust and mutual respect. It's about fostering healthy connections, teaching them how to navigate conflict constructively, and helping them understand the importance of reciprocity in relationships.
It's like we're building a personal philosophy for a mini human. And the constant learning and adaptation we talked about throughout the series is so crucial here. Children change so rapidly. What works one year might not work the next.
Precisely. A rigid philosophy of parenting will likely lead to frustration. A more dynamic, philosophical approach embraces flexibility and ongoing learning. It's about being willing to examine our own assumptions, adjust our strategies based on our child's evolving needs and personality, and admit when we don't have all the answers. This ties back to our discussion on daily reflection and philosophical practice. We need to reflect on our parenting, too.
So, to recap what we've discussed for parenting, it's about thoughtfully considering the purpose of raising children, understanding the nature of children themselves, consciously shaping their ethical compass, supporting their developing sense of self, nurturing their relational skills, and remaining open to continuous learning and adaptation.
That's a wonderful summary, Lisa. A philosophy of parenting isn't a fixed set of rules. It's a guiding framework. It's about intention. It's about asking ourselves, What kind of person do I hope my child will become? What kind of parent do I aspire to be today and tomorrow? And how can I live my own philosophy in a way that guides and inspires them? It's an ongoing conversation, both with our children and with ourselves.
It really is a journey, isn't it? And it's one that profoundly shapes not only our children, but also our own personal growth.
Indeed. And the skills we're honing here, critical thinking, value clarification, self-reflection, these are invaluable tools for every aspect of life, including parenting. Next time, we'll be looking at the practice of philosophy more directly, exploring how to integrate these ideas into our daily lives. Next episode, Daily Reflection and Philosophical Practice. Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. In this episode, we're diving into daily reflection and philosophical practice.
That's right, Alex. We've explored what philosophy is, our beliefs, values, and sense of self. Now, it's time to figure out how to actually live this personal philosophy day in and day out.
Exactly. Think of building a house. We've laid the foundation and built the structure. Now, we need to focus on the interior design and daily living within that home. Daily reflection is how we maintain and inhabit our philosophical home. It's the bridge between abstract thought and embodied action.
So, how do we do this daily reflection? Do I need to sit in a quiet room for hours?
Not at all. Daily reflection can be adapted to fit your life. One of the most powerful tools is journaling. And I mean journaling with intention, asking specific questions that tie back to our earlier discussions.
Like what?
You could ask, did my actions today align with my core values? Or what assumptions did I make today, and were they helpful? Another good one is, did I approach my relationships with the empathy I want to embody? Even just 5 to 10 minutes of writing these questions down and exploring your honest answers can be incredibly illuminating.
That makes sense. It's like a personal check-in, but with a philosophical lens. It forces you to pause and evaluate your choices and reactions.
Precisely. And journaling can take many forms. It could be bullet points, a few sentences, or even a drawing. The key is consistency and honesty. It's not about creating a perfect narrative. It's about gaining clarity.
What about other practices? I know meditation is often linked with self-awareness.
Absolutely. Meditation is a phenomenal practice for cultivating a philosophical mindset. While formal meditation is excellent for training your attention and observing your thoughts without judgment, there are other forms.
What do you mean by other forms?
Think about mindful observation. This means paying attention to the present moment, to your senses, without getting lost in thought. You can practice this while eating, walking, or even during conversations. When you're truly present, you're more likely to notice your ingrained habits, your triggers, and the subtle ways your philosophy is playing out.
So, it's about bringing your intention to the mundane activities of life?
Exactly. It's about seeing the philosophy in the everyday. For example, if you're trying to cultivate patience, practicing mindful observation during a frustrating moment, like being stuck in traffic, allows you to notice your impulse to get angry, to understand it, and perhaps to choose a different response. It's where our abstract understanding of patience meets real-world experience.
This reminds me of what we discussed in episode 7 about the philosophy of self. It's about really being an observer of your own inner workings.
You've got it. And these practices, journaling and mindful observation, help us connect the dots. When you journal and write, I felt frustrated in traffic today, and then later, during a mindful walk, you notice yourself getting impatient with a slow walker. You start to see a pattern. This awareness is the first step to making conscious changes.
It's like having an internal dialogue that helps you course correct.
Yes, and it feeds directly into how we engage with the world. Think about our discussion on the philosophy of relationships in episode 8. Daily reflection can help you identify recurring communication patterns. Are you listening actively? Are you responding thoughtfully or reacting impulsively?
And this practice isn't just for internal adjustment. It helps us live more intentionally in the world.
Exactly. By reflecting daily, we reinforce our values and beliefs. We make sure that our actions are a conscious embodiment of who we aspire to be. It's a continuous process of learning, adjusting, and growing. It keeps our personal philosophy alive and dynamic.
So, to recap what we've talked about today, daily reflection is crucial for integrating our personal philosophy into our lives. We can use tools like journaling, asking targeted questions about our values and assumptions, and practicing mindful observation in everyday activities. These practices help us become more aware of our thought patterns and behaviors, allowing us to make conscious choices that align with our deeper beliefs.
Well said, Lisa. This practice of daily reflection is what truly allows us to live and examine life and to move from having a philosophy to being philosophical. It's the engine that drives continuous personal growth.
And it sets us up perfectly for our upcoming episodes, where we'll start looking at how to engage with the wisdom of others and how to weave it all together into a cohesive, lived philosophy.
Indeed. Next up, we'll be exploring how to engage with the great thinkers who have come before us.
That sounds fascinating.
Next episode, engaging with the great philosophers. Welcome back. Last time, we explored daily reflection and philosophical practice. Now, let's talk about engaging with the great philosophers.
That's right, Alex. So far, we've been focused on building our personal philosophies from the ground up. We've looked inward, defining our core beliefs, values, and understanding our place in relationships and work. This episode is about looking outward, to the thinkers who have grappled with these same questions for centuries. It's like discovering you've been building a beautiful house, and now you get to explore a city filled with amazing architecture.
Exactly. And the thought of diving into philosophy can feel intimidating, can it? We might picture dusty books, complex language, and ideas that seem completely removed from our daily lives. But that's not our goal here. Our aim isn't to become academic scholars, but to find wisdom that can enrich our personal philosophies. We want to learn from the greats, but on our own terms.
So, how do we even begin to approach these historical giants? If I were to pick up a book by, say, Plato, I might get lost very quickly. What are some practical ways listeners can start engaging without feeling overwhelmed?
That's a great question, Lisa. The first step is to remember our purpose. We're not trying to memorize every detail or agree with every single point. We're looking for sparks of insight, ideas that resonate with us, or even perspectives that challenge us in productive ways. Think of it like visiting a vast library. You don't try to read every book, you browse the shelves, pick out a few that catch your eye, and dip into them.
Okay, so it's about selective exploration, not exhaustive study. What kind of resources would you recommend for someone just starting out?
There are many entry points. You could start with introductory books that provide overviews of major philosophers or key ideas. These are often written in more accessible language. Another excellent approach is to focus on specific themes that are important to your personal philosophy. For example, if ethics is a big part of your thinking, you might look for philosophers who are famous for their ethical theories.
That makes sense. So, instead of trying to understand Aristotle's entire system, I could focus on his ideas about virtue and happiness, if that's what I'm exploring in my own life.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to start with secondary sources, books or articles that explain a philosopher's ideas. These can provide scaffolding and context, helping you understand the original text better when you're ready to dive in. Think of them as guides on your journey. Engaging with reputable online lectures or summaries can also be very helpful.
I appreciate that reminder. Because sometimes trying to read ancient texts can feel like trying to decipher a foreign language. It would be helpful to have a translator, so to speak, before I try to go directly to the source.
Absolutely. And when you do engage with the original works, or even good explanations of them, ask yourself questions. What problem was this philosopher trying to solve? What were their core assumptions? How well does their thinking align with your own evolving philosophy? And importantly, what can you learn from their perspective, even if you ultimately disagree with it?
That's a powerful way to frame it. It moves from passive reading to active engagement. It's not just about absorbing information, but about a dialogue across time. We're essentially asking them, what insights do you have for my life today?
Exactly. And you'll find that many of the questions we wrestle with today about meaning, happiness, justice, our place in the world are the very same questions philosophers have been pondering for thousands of years. Engaging with their attempts to answer them can provide comfort, perspective, and new avenues for your own thinking.
So, we're not just learning about history, we're learning about perennial human concerns. Are there any common pitfalls or mistakes you see people make when they first try to engage with philosophers?
One of the biggest is the temptation to feel inadequate. You might read a passage and think, I don't understand this, and then give up. It's crucial to be patient with yourself. Philosophical ideas can be dense and require contemplation. Another pitfall is taking everything at face value. Don't just accept what a philosopher says. Question it, think critically, and see how it fits into your own framework. Remember, this is about building your philosophy, not adopting someone else's wholesale.
That's a vital point, Alex. We're borrowing tools and ideas, not simply inheriting a belief system. What about when different philosophers seem to contradict each other? That could be very confusing.
That's precisely where the richness lies. Disagreements between philosophers highlight different ways of approaching problems. For instance, you might find a philosopher who emphasizes individual freedom and another who stresses social responsibility. Exploring these contrasts can help you clarify your own stance on where you fall on those spectrums. It's like looking at two different maps of the same territory. Each one highlights different features and helps you see the landscape in a more nuanced way.
I love that analogy. It's not about finding the right answer, but about developing a more comprehensive understanding by considering multiple perspectives. So, to recap for our listeners, engaging with philosophers is about seeking wisdom to enrich our personal philosophies, not about becoming experts. We can start with accessible introductions or focus on specific themes relevant to our lives.
And we should approach these thinkers with curiosity and a critical mind, asking questions and looking for insights that resonate. Be patient with yourself. Remember you're building your own philosophy and embrace the dialogue between different perspectives. It's about finding what sparks your understanding and helps you live more thoughtfully.
This idea of a dialogue across time is really powerful. It makes the study of philosophy feel less like a lonely pursuit and more like joining a grand, ongoing conversation.
And that conversation continues with you. Next episode, we'll be moving towards the final stages of building your personal philosophy, focusing on how to integrate all these pieces into a cohesive way of living. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered engaging with great thinkers. Now let's tackle crafting your integrated life.
That's right, Alex. We've spent a lot of time examining our beliefs, our values, our sense of self, and how these play out in our relationships and work. Now it's time for the big synthesis, crafting our integrated life. It sounds, well, a bit big.
It is big, Lisa, but it's also incredibly rewarding. An integrated life is one where your actions, your thoughts, and your feelings are all aligned with your core philosophy. It's about living authentically where there's no major disconnect between who you are on the inside and how you show up in the world.
So, it's like taking all the puzzle pieces we've uncovered, our beliefs, our values, our ethical frameworks, our insights from philosophers, and fitting them together to form a complete picture?
Exactly. Think of it like building a house. You've gathered all the best materials, the sturdy foundation of your core beliefs, the strong walls of your values, the well-designed rooms for your relationships and work. Now, you're putting the roof on and making sure everything flows. Integration is about making sure all those parts work together harmoniously. When you have an integrated philosophy, you're not pulled in multiple directions by conflicting ideas.
That clarity must make decision making so much easier, wouldn't you say? If I'm faced with a choice, and I know it aligns with my core values and beliefs, the path forward becomes much clearer.
Absolutely. This is a key benefit of integration. When your philosophy is integrated, it acts as a compass. Instead of feeling paralyzed by options or swayed by external pressures, you have an internal guide. You can ask yourself, does this choice support my fundamental beliefs? Does it reflect what I truly value? Is this in line with the kind of person I aspire to be?
And this isn't just about grand, life altering decisions, is it? It also applies to the everyday choices we make.
Precisely. It's in the small things, how you spend your free time, how you interact with colleagues, whether you take that extra moment to be kind. These daily actions are the building blocks of an integrated life. If your philosophy dictates that community is important, but you consistently isolate yourself, there's a disconnect, a lack of integration.
So, how do we actually do this crafting? What are the steps to ensure our philosophy isn't just a collection of good ideas, but a living, breathing part of us?
It begins with a conscious review. Look back at everything we've discussed. What are your absolute core beliefs? What are the values that you hold most dear, the ones you wouldn't compromise on? How do you define your ethical responsibilities? And what have you learned about yourself, your relationships, and your purpose?
So, we're not creating something entirely new, but refining and harmonizing what's already there?
That's a great way to put it. It's about understanding the relationships between your different philosophical components. For example, if you believe in the inherent dignity of all people and you value compassion, then your philosophy naturally leads you to treat everyone with respect, regardless of their background or status. These ideas don't just exist in isolation, they reinforce each other.
This sounds like a practice of constant self awareness. It's not a one time fix, is it?
Not at all. Integration is an ongoing process. Life throws new situations at us. We encounter new ideas, and we grow. Our philosophy needs to be flexible enough to adapt, yet stable enough to provide a consistent anchor. So, periodically revisiting your core beliefs and values and checking for alignment is crucial.
Remember in episode 11, we talked about daily reflection? I can see how that practice directly supports this integration. Taking a few moments each day to consider our actions and thoughts in light of our philosophy helps to keep that compass needle pointing true.
You've hit the nail on the head, Lisa. Daily reflection is like the small, constant adjustments you make to your navigation system to ensure you stay on course. It's about identifying inconsistencies before they become major divergences. Perhaps you find yourself feeling resentful about a work task. Integrated reflection might lead you to ask, does this task align with my philosophy of purposeful work? If not, how can I approach it with more integrity, or can I seek an alternative that does?
And when we talk about engaging with philosophers as we did last time, that fits in here too, right? It's not just about reading them, but about seeing how their wisdom can help us bridge gaps in our own thinking or reinforce our existing integrations.
Exactly. A philosopher might present an ethical dilemma that sharply highlights a tension in your own thinking between, say, personal freedom and social responsibility. Engaging with their arguments can help you refine your own stance and strengthen the integration of these two important aspects of your philosophy. It's like getting expert advice on how to build your house better.
So, an integrated life isn't just about having a clear philosophy, it's about living it. It's about bringing your inner world and your outer world into harmony. This leads to a sense of wholeness, doesn't it?
That's the ultimate goal, wholeness and authenticity. When your life is integrated, you spend less energy trying to reconcile conflicting parts of yourself or situations you're facing. This freed up energy can then be directed towards living a more meaningful and purposeful life. Your actions become the clearest expression of who you are and what you stand for.
It's the difference between just knowing what you believe and actually embodying those beliefs. It's about living your philosophy, not just thinking about it.
And that living, that embodying, is what makes a personal philosophy truly powerful. It transforms abstract principles into concrete actions, shaping your experiences and leaving a positive mark on the world around you. It's the culmination of all our efforts in this series.
So, to recap, crafting an integrated life means harmonizing your core beliefs, values, ethical frameworks, and insights into a cohesive whole. This leads to a powerful inner compass for decision making, both big and small, and fosters a sense of authenticity and wholeness. It's an ongoing practice of self awareness and reflection, informed by the wisdom of others.
Well said, Lisa. And the good news is this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a lifelong journey. Next episode, Living Your Philosophy, the ongoing journey. Welcome back to Build Your Personal Philosophy. This is episode 14, the last one.
It is. We've covered so much ground, from exploring the unexamined life to crafting an integrated life. Today, we're focusing on what it means to actually live your philosophy.
Exactly. Building a personal philosophy isn't a task you complete. It's a living process, and this final episode is about embracing that ongoing journey. Think of it as your personal compass for life.
So, what does this ongoing journey look like for our listeners as they move forward? How do they keep this sense of purpose and growth alive?
The first foundational step is to remember daily reflection, something we discussed in episode 11. It's about checking in with yourself regularly. Are your daily actions aligning with your core values? Are your beliefs genuinely serving you and helping you navigate life? It requires actively engaging with your personal philosophy.
That makes sense. So, it's not just about having a philosophy, but about doing philosophy. It's an active process of questioning, assessing, and refining.
Precisely. This ties directly back to unpacking your assumptions, which we explored in episode 4. New experiences and different perspectives will inevitably challenge your thinking. A well-developed personal philosophy provides a framework to adapt intelligently to these challenges.
That adaptability is so crucial. Life constantly throws unexpected things at us, and our philosophy needs to be robust enough to handle them or flexible enough to adjust. Remember episode 6, where we talked about defining your core values. Those values act as your anchor in turbulent times.
Absolutely. Your values are your true North Star. Living your philosophy means making decisions, big and small, that are consistent with those deeply held values. It's about living with authenticity and integrity.
And that's where the concept of the ethical compass from episode 5 becomes essential. It's about making consistent, conscious choices to do what you believe is right, aligning your actions with your deeper philosophical framework.
It's about embodying these principles in your everyday life. Think back to the philosophy of self we discussed in episode 7, and then the philosophy of relationships in episode 8. Living your philosophy means bringing your authentic, examined self into all your interactions and connections with others.
And this impacts every area of your life. Episode 9 on the philosophy of work and episode 10 on the philosophy of parenting are all deeply informed by your personal philosophy. When you live intentionally, your work can become more meaningful, and your approach to parenting can become more purposeful and nurturing.
This is a journey that naturally evolves over time. We touched on engaging with the great philosophers in episode 12. Their insights and perspectives can offer immense wisdom and broaden your understanding.
It's like continually adding more valuable tools to your philosophical toolbox. And when we discussed crafting your integrated life in episode 13, we were really talking about bringing all these different pieces, your values, your beliefs, your understanding of self, together into a cohesive whole. Today, we're talking about actively using that integrated life.
So, to recap, living your philosophy means consistently practicing daily reflection, being willing to unpack your assumptions, letting your core values and ethical compass guide your decisions, bringing your authentic self to your relationships and work, remaining open to new wisdom, and continually striving for a more integrated and purpose-driven existence.
It truly boils down to making conscious, intentional choices every single day as you move through life. It's about embracing continuous growth, graceful adaptation, and a profound sense of purpose.
And the rewards of living this way are immense. This series has aimed to provide you with the foundational framework and the encouragement needed for this lifelong endeavor. Remember, the unexamined life may not be worth living, but the examined life, lived with intention and purpose, is truly worth experiencing.
You've now been equipped with the tools to ask the deep questions, to define what truly matters to you, and to understand yourself and your place in the world better. The next step is to take that knowledge and go out and live it.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this journey. It has been an absolute honor to share these ideas with you. Thanks for listening to the series.